Serena, you first.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you.
Serena, this was your idea. I asked you to be part of this friendship special. Great, you said. I know, let's reenact our earliest adventure, you said.
Just to explain, we got caught in a rip in our floaties when we were 3, and we were halfway to Rottnest before our mums even noticed.
So now, reenactment time. We just forgot one thing. Sharks. We didn't think about sharks when we were 3. No. Friendship. From before we can even speak, we seek the companionship of others. But why? Why is this drive so powerful? And how come, out of all the people we meet in our lives, we fall in friendship with some and not others?
So this is a part of the brain that is really important in being able to make friends.
They're big questions that go beyond science. So, in addition to the calibre of expert you'd expect for Catalyst, I've asked some prominent Australians to share their stories, and I've also put the screws on some of my own friends to be involved. After all, what are friends for? Do you think we should get out now?
Yeah.
A real friend is somebody who makes you feel safe in this world.
I can reveal my weaknesses, my vulnerabilities, my irritations, my fears.
The person you would trust with everything.
Someone who's going to speak honestly with you, even if it's a bit rough to hear.
Without friendship, I would be a phone with a dead battery. You know, I need to plug myself into my girlfriends and recharge.
For me, Cottesloe in Perth is where my friendship stories began with Serena. We met when we were 2, shared birthdays and holidays. We've been on road trips, workshopped relationships. And despite living a continent apart, she still embodies my definition of friendship. I wonder about how we could have known back when we were 2 that we were that compatible.
Well, maybe there is no way of knowing. It's just something, you just live it. You just live it.
And on that philosophical note, let's now turn to the experts. So we're off to the UK because I feel the need to consult a philosopher. And if you're going to consult with a philosopher, why not go for the best? And one of the best is here in London. Hello, Professor Grayling. Lovely to see you again. He is the famous Professor A.C. Grayling. And having just written a book on friendship, he's thought a lot about the topic he thinks has been overshadowed by romantic love.
Friendship is subordinated to romantic love because we all love romantic love. We all want to be in love. We all want to be infatuated. And so absorbing and vivid is the experience of being infatuated that we fail to recognise that when you're infatuated with somebody, you don't see that person at all. You just see a vision of them.
Unlike romantic love, a friend sees through all your public fronts to the warts and all you and likes you anyway.
That is such a valorising thing. It's such an affirming thing to have that kind of relationship.
A friend keeps us presentable and somewhat sane.
Somebody who has no friends really begins to look very decrepit. They begin to sort of moulder away and become untidy and food down the front of their shirts. Friendship is a garden, and the good friend is a good gardener and plucks out the weeds and trims back the roses and just generally speaking keeps us in some sort of shape.
A friend knows when to lie to us and when it's important to tell the truth.
There's a wonderful definition of friendship given us by Oscar Wilde, which is a friend is somebody who stabs you in the front. Well, that's quite an important function of friendship too.
A friend does things for you with pleasure and without expectation of return, such as helping me make this film.
Many philosophers have said that our ultimate motivation for doing something good is self-interest, that there will be some payback to ourselves. And this is absolutely refuted by the fact that we go out of our way and very, very willingly, happily, joyously sometimes do things, and that indeed it's all the better if there isn't a payback.
experience.
Okay, so we've asked a philosopher to help us define a friend, but I want to go deeper now to the bigger question. What are friends really for?
There are particular people in my life that I would easily take a bullet for.
I wouldn't kill for them. Gee whiz. I'd protect them if they did kill anyone, I suppose, and I'd go to great lengths to get them off.
And what is that? That's a love. That's a real love.
The passion we feel for people we're not even related to is so much part of human nature, we take it for granted. But in the rest of the mammal kingdom, it's really rare. So what happened to make us? Next stop, Oxford. We need to go back in time now and consult an evolutionary psychologist.
Well, Oxford is the kind of place you think big thoughts, and I've come to meet a man who's been pondering one of the biggest thoughts of all. That is, why did we humans evolve our big brains?
It's been hotly debated for a century, but this man has a radical answer. He is my new best friend, Professor Robin Dunbar. And it all started with a discovery that put friendship at the core of human evolution.
It was very left field even for me. So what we're talking about here is this relationship between brain size and group size that you have across primates, and humans just slot very nicely into that. Now, when I came up with that relationship, I was actually testing a rather boring hypothesis about the function of social grooming in monkeys and apes. The reason monkeys and apes spend so much time engaged in social grooming is as a bonding mechanism to hold their groups together. And it just occurred to me once I showed there was a correlation between group size and time spent grooming that there ought to be a three-way correlation with brain size as well.
Cue some frankly brilliant friendship maths.
So Dunbar decided to map the size of a primate's group against their brain size. And lo and behold, it lined up perfectly. The bigger the size of the primate's group, the larger their brains. Conclusion, it was the need to have more and more friends that drove the evolution of ever bigger brains.
It's turned out to be even more surprising because not only does this relationship between group size and brain size apply between species, but it also applies within species. So we've shown that the number of friends you have correlates basically with the size of this part of your brain.
So how many friends is that? Well, there's a range in individual humans from 100 to 200 friends, but there is a magic number in the middle.
And this is where it gets really clever. Taking that original study of primate group size versus brain size, Dunbar then made a prediction about the size of the human social group based on the line of best fit. And that's how he came up with the magic number of 150.
There's something peculiar about the 150 in that it seems to be the limit on the number of people that you can have reciprocated relationships with. That's relationships which are based on trust and reciprocity, and they have history.
150 also happens to be the size of the average hunter-gatherer clan, the basic fighting unit of the Roman army, the size of the average 10th century English village, the size of the modern army company. In fact, there's so much evidence to support the number 150 that it's now widely accepted and immortalised as Dunbar's number.
Once you're beyond 150, you're into a layer of acquaintances, which is all that you do on Facebook. And they'd be a bit surprised if you sort of said, why don't you pop round on Saturday for a beer? Inside the 150, everybody say, great idea. We haven't had a beer for years. Let's have a sit down and catch up.
Still, 150 is a lot of people to invite for a beer, a lot larger than any other primate social gathering. So why bother with such big groups?
They're almost certainly evolved for protection against raiding by the guys over the hill.
Hi, Jonica. Hey, Tom.
And if there's one person I rely on to come over the hill to my defence, it's my brother. In case you were wondering, your family does count as a friend in the 150. After all, back in prehistory, most people in our group would have been some sort of kin. In fact, kin get first dibs in the 150, with other friends filling in the slots behind. And my bro even lives in the same suburb as me.
Hey bro, I've been worrying about what would happen if Balmain got invaded by a neighbouring suburb.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, it really occupies my mind as well.
Exactly. Apparently our friendship bonds evolved as a line of defence.
Sure.
So if Balmain's invaded, I expect you to have my back.
Sure. Like, from what direction? Are we taking out Drummoyne? Because I'd really like to take out Drummoyne. Drummoyne annoys me.
Yeah, I was just thinking Roselle and Leichhardt.
Roselle and Leichhardt.
Yeah. And just in case, I came prepared.
So, to summarise, way back in time, there was an advantage to having a large bonded group that felt obliged to come to each other's aid, even if it meant putting themselves at great risk.
This attack from Leichhardt, it's really slow, isn't it? It's like they're not coming at speed, are they? What are the strings?
The friendship group limit was 150, and these days family make up about half of that.
All right, troops, prepare to repel Leichhardt! Slowly.
But why does having lots of friends mean you need a big brain?
And cut.
So let me just clarify my family. So my mum married Lester, who used to go to university with my dad. My dad, meanwhile,
Keeping track of our relationships is one of the most complex computations a brain is called upon to do.
All our social and cultural activities really depend on trying to understand how the other person is seeing the world, this mind-reading capacity. That's very, very expensive because the brain is having to, in effect, model a virtual world inside itself.
Then we've got all Robin's kids,
And the more friends, the more brain power needed. And there was another consequence of the need to service so many relationships: language.
Language evolved to allow us to create friendships and bond large-scale social communities.
So much for friendship being a trivial topic in evolutionary biology.
There's no way that friendship is trivial. In evolutionary anything, actually, never mind everyday life. I mean, it's the beginning and the end of your ability to survive and reproduce successfully. Depends critically on the quality of your friendships and their number.
But let's face it, not all friends are created equal. Some friends are more special than others.
So inside that 150, there are layers like an onion. So in our innermost circle, we have 5 intimate friends. These are our first go-tos for emotional support, help, maybe even money. They help make up a layer of around 15 really close friends. These are our main social support network. Then the next layer out, around 50 good friends. You may socialise with them, your childcare arrangements may come through them, and then so on out to 150 generalised friends. These might give you tips on the latest movie, a job going, etc.
So how does it happen? Out of all the people we meet in our lives, why do some people become close? Who becomes our inner circle?
I think friendship chemistry absolutely exists.
Well, part of it, I suppose, is charisma.
Same sense of humour and the same attitudes and beliefs about the world.
And it's quite nice, especially when you've been in a long-term relationship, you know, as I am, and I've been married for such a long time, you can get that same kind of frisson or that same connection and electricity and flirtiness even from a friendship.
Next stop on my friendship tour is St Kilda, Melbourne, because this is where I met my bestie in my late 20s.
Now the clearest example I have of falling in friendship was when I met Lizzie.
Oh my gosh, it's so great to see you, John. Do you remember how we met?
Well, actually, there was 2 times we met, and the first one was briefly on a horse ride with a group of other people. About a week or so later, I remember I was sitting at the bar and all of a sudden you were standing there, and I looked at you and I thought, that's that girl that was on the horse ride that, you know, was really up herself. And you were standing... It's true, Jonica. And you were standing there and ready for anything. And I thought, you know what, there's something about her I really, you know, want to get to know more about.
And for the next 4 years, we were inseparable. We skied together, rode horses together, rollerbladed together, picked up men together. But out of all the girls in all the bars in town, why this one?
It seems that friendships are born and not made, in the sense that it actually depends on you having things in common with these people.
Basically, we're more likely to be drawn to people who mirror us. Studies have even shown we prefer people with similar voice patterns.
And then whether they survive in that inner core of best friends, as it were, or start to bump down through the layers and drift out and become an acquaintance eventually, depends really on how many of 6 key dimensions of friendship you actually share with them. And these are all cultural, so having the same language, coming from the same place, having the same educational history, having the same hobbies and interests, having the same world views, so things like political views, religious views, moral views, and last but not least, having the same sense of humour.
In fact, shared humour turns out to be one of the most important dimensions. When we reflect on what it is we get from our closest friends, this comes up again and again. They make us laugh. And to go back to our evolution for a moment, Dunbar now believes this is precisely why laughter evolved. To provide glue for our friendships.
Laughter is extremely good at releasing endorphins in the brain. Now, it turns out that endorphins are the pharmacological basis of friendships in monkeys and apes. So when monkeys and apes create their relationships, their friendships, if you like, they do it through grooming. And what that does is trigger in the brain the release of endorphins. So what seems to have happened is laughter came in very, very early on, probably about 2 million years ago, as an adjunct to grooming, to increase the size of the grooming group, in effect. Because the problem with grooming is it's only the recipient of grooming that gets the hit. Whereas with laughter, if everybody is laughing in a group, they all get the hit at the same time, including the person who told the joke.
So when it comes to friends, we're attracted to the similar. But there is another surefire secret to firm friendship, one I like to call forged under fire. Being at war together. Working in stressful jobs, helping someone through illness or any other major life stress. Intensity of shared experience will form friends for life.
The endorphins are critical to that, yet again, so you get this sort of pharmacological bonding.
Yeah, so I guess that's how you can end up with friends who are actually very different to you, but you feel like you can trust them with your life.
Yes, because those are precisely the cases you know you've actually tested it. You know, you've been there, you've done it, and you've got the T-shirt. And you don't have to build a relationship as we normally do with friendships, which is a kind of forecasting what's going to happen in the future. So it's we trust that they're going to come and help us out. We get the right vibes, and so we think it'll work. Those cases, you know it works because they've done it.
All right, well, I've listened to everything the experts have said, and I've actually come up with my own equation for friendship, and it is F equals, brackets, S plus I, close brackets, times T. So to explain F, friendship, obviously, S for similarity plus intensity of shared experience, times time, or investment, if you like. And that, to me, sums up who, out of all the people you meet in your life, are likely to become your closest friends.
So we have an equation for friendship. a sense of who we might fall in friendship with, but there is another factor here. And that is that once we have friends, we start to fall into a larger pattern, a network. And a friendship network has properties all of its own. We're talking friendfluence.
Early on, friends have put me in the right direction as far as intellectual pursuits.
Certainly taking up cigarette smoking at 13, that was entirely just because I wanted to fit in with my friends.
You know, I even tried to fool the world that I was a surfer because I had blonde hair and that fit, you know. And then I was right into skating, and so my jeans went baggy. Friendfluence is for real. It's very real.
Next visit, a man who studies the power of friendship networks. He is Dr. Alex Fornito, and what he's about to show me is a little bit mind-blowing.
So what's this?
So this is a social network mapped in a group of over 12,000 people from a US town called Framingham in Massachusetts. So here we can see each circle represents a person, and the size of the circle is related to their body mass index.
So how fat they are, yeah.
The bigger the circle is, the heavier the person weighs. And yellow people meet criteria for being labelled as obese, whereas green people are non-obese people. And we draw lines between them if they're socially linked in some way.
Watch now what happens over 20 years. More and more people become obese, but they also start to cluster together. Knowing an obese person increases your own risk of obesity by an incredible 45%. But what about the influence of people you don't even know?
So much like the idea of 6 degrees of separation, this study suggests there might be 3 degrees of influence. So not only being the friend of someone with obesity, but being the friend of a friend of a friend of someone with obesity could impact your own chances of becoming obese.
Well, so people within the friendship network that you don't even know are determining to a degree how fat you are.
That's what this study would suggest. One of the leading explanations for this is that social norms can spread. So you might have some people that are 3 degrees removed from you and they start to put on weight, and then their direct friends start to see that, and that becomes more of a socially accepted norm within that group. And then that kind of gradually spreads throughout your social network.
This same friendfluence at a distance has now been found for obesity, happiness, and giving up smoking. But there is another thing networks can tell us. Not all people enter the network on an equal footing. Some people have a talent for friendship. This is a map of the friendship network of an entire high school year, part of Dr. Fornito's current study.
So this boy here has got many friends in each of the 2 large groups.
Right.
Okay? So you could argue that he acts as a social hub or a bridge between different groups. He's able to relate to different types of people and bring different groups of friends together.
In fact, it turns out a lot of our talent for friendship is genetic. Twin studies have shown 46% of the variation in how many friends you have is explained by your genes. And that's why, as part of his study of high school students, Alex is peering inside this part of their brains, the medial prefrontal cortex.
This part of the brain we know is involved in thinking about other people's intentions, feeling empathy towards others, and these are all skills that we think are really important for being able to make friends. So
this is like the theory of mind part of the brain.
Exactly. So it's been shown that the size of this brain region is related to how many friends you have, so how big your social network is, and how complex it is. That's right.
But no matter how good you are at friendship, things can still go wrong. So what happens when friendship goes bad?
If you've called on a friend and they haven't been there for you, you go, well, you know, I needed you then and you weren't there.
Oh, I think I've been allowed to drift away. I've certainly allowed other friends to drift away. In my view, if that happens, that's the best way for it to go. I know that's not popular. People have to have closure and you've got to resolve everything.
Yeah, I've definitely had a few friends drop me. And
Is it like a knife, it's been described?
It's like an arrow through the heart.
It's the price we humans pay for the evolution of our greatest gift, the strength of our friendships. So strong are those emotional ties that when they're tested, it hurts. As I found out for myself when my best friend disappeared. We were estranged for a long time.
We were.
How was that for you?
It was probably the hardest thing I've ever been through with a partner or a friend. I don't know, and it was like a death, really. And yeah, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, I suppose I wanted to pick up the phone so many times, but I couldn't. And
it's an odd fact that when relationships go bad, the pain you get from that is actually identical to the pain you get from physical injury. It's in the same part of the brain. So basically, you know, it is like having a knife stuck into your heart. I'm paying very close
Dunbar's
attention.
group has researched these bust-ups, and while most are more distant connections, a surprising 34% are from the innermost circle, those really close friends or family members.
Which is a disaster, because if you lose those, you know, you're losing the people who are going to come to your aid no matter what, normally. If you alienate them, then you've lost your major source of support through life.
So what had happened to sever me and Lizzie?
Oh my gosh!
Well, it turned out Lizzie had decided to run away to the country and marry a cowboy, and she knew I wouldn't approve, so she didn't tell me. But what started as a minor temporary communication lapse became a 10-year estrangement, until one day, older, cowboy-free, and missing her friend, Lizzie made the first move to reconciliation and picked up the phone. But this is when we reunited.
that's right. That's when, you know, I resurrected myself. I came back.
I love that photo. Cheers. Friends. They make us laugh, make us weep. They support us, help us, and come to our aid. Our brains were designed for them, our endorphins primed for them. Which is why I guess we love our photos, our endless photos that remind us of shared experiences and remain as solid proof that we have friends.
Okay, let's just put them all away.
Next time on Catalyst, answering the big question in climate science. What happened to global warming? Illustris, the computer simulation that reveals the life of the universe. And green alloys, reincarnating products deemed unrecyclable. Connect with Catalyst on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and our website.